Well, this is the exciting part of the year, isn't it, when we get to Christmas? And I'm going to be sharing with you today a favorite Christmas recipe. This is a traditional Italian panettone, but I've put a twist on it so that it's good for your gut health. There's no point in missing out on all of the fun at Christmas. You want to be able to have fun, but not exceed your thresholds. And so I'm sharing with you my favorite recipes today. So to make traditional panettone, Italian panettone, which is actually a sweet bread, but we're not going to be ladening this bread with high carbohydrates, including sugar and dried fruit. But it does actually start with yeast. So we need to prove the yeast first. So I've got a sachet of yeast here, which is equivalent to a tablespoon of dried yeast. I'm putting that into a bowl. And we do have to give it something to feed, but I am only going to use a very small amount of honey, and I've got 1/3 cup of already warmed almond milk. So I'm just adding that in there, and to help prove the yeast, just a tiny bit of honey, not much at all. Going to give that a stir, and I'm going to put it somewhere warm, covered, so that it can prove. It's already starting. So exciting. So to make this panettone keto, we're actually going to be using some almond flour. There's 450 grams. Now, almond is one of the nuts that is high in amines. So I tend to try and use other types of seeds and other types of nuts to produce my flour, but I've chosen the almond for this one because I actually want that whiteness to be as part of the panettone. So I'm using almond flour for this one, but be aware it is higher in amines. So 450 grams of almond flour, that's 300, and then I measured out the extra 150. It's actually quite a lot. This is going to create a lot of panettone. And then we're going to be using some protein powder. So we can use either a whey protein or a collagen peptide protein, but it needs to be plain, no flavor. That's 1/2 cup. And we're also going to be using a granulated sweetener. Now we can use either a straight stevia or a monk fruit, or you can use a stevia and erythritol blend. This is a blend, and it is more like granulated sugar. It's a lovely white powder. However, if you're really sensitive to sweeteners, and specifically the erythritol is a polyol. So if you're FODMAP sensitive, you'll be sensitive to this. So you need to swap that to just straight stevia. So this is a 1/2 cup of this granulated sweetener. It is a sweet bread, so there it goes, 1/2 cup. I err on the side of slightly less. So that's the granulated sweetener. Now we're going to be adding in some herbs to have this lovely flavor, but instead of using cinnamon, which again is high in amines, we're going to be using cardamom and allspice. So we're not using cinnamon, we're not using nutmeg. Just a teaspoon of each. So we've got 3 teaspoons of baking powder, and this is aluminium free. Now we're just going to combine all these dry ingredients together, and we'll set this aside for later. We're going to beat up 5 eggs. Now that the eggs are frothy, we're going to add the other wet ingredients, which includes the yeast that we activated earlier. So that's going in. Wow. We're adding in 76 grams of melted butter. We're also adding in the zest of 1 orange. just a little squidge of vanilla. Now that that's fully mixed, we're adding in the chocolate bits. Now these are sugar-free and it's a No Shoe brand. They're dark chocolate. This is what's replacing the dried fruit, and it's going to keep the carbohydrate in this recipe really low. So just a ½ cup of the dark chocolate No Shoe chocolate bits. We'll just gently mix those through. So I've prepared a springform baking tin, especially a high-sided one. It's got a bit of parchment paper at the very bottom and it's been smeared with butter. We're going to put the mixture in there and smooth it off at the top. Then we need to let it rise. Okay, so that's in the tin. We've leveled it. And now all we need to do is wrap it up, put a tea towel over the top, and it goes into the oven that is not on, but actually a little bit warm, and it's going to rise. So we're going to leave it for 2 hours. Yay! It's been 2 hours. Oh, it hasn't risen much at all. Okay, we're going to put a handful of flaked almonds on top and set the temperature on the oven to 175 degrees Celsius, and then we're going to bake it for 40 to 45 minutes. Oh. That has to cool. Oh, I'm very happy with that. Okay, just gonna get this off. Oh, look at that. Oh, I love that. So I'm going to give it a slice.